Good evening, everybody. Good morning, everybody. Brian Neubert here from goldenblack.com, live in the John Wooden Room here in Mackey Arena. Your mother probably told you at some point that nothing good happens after 1:40 in the morning, and you're about to find out why, because this is our wrap video following Purdue's 77-70 Big Ten opening win over Iowa, a win that most likely ascends Purdue to number one nationally. Although I'm sure the final 10 minutes of this game probably made Baylor look really good to some people. But be that as it may, Purdue will be number one Monday almost assuredly. Again, this is your wrap video following the 77-70 win over Iowa. It is brought to you by our friends at the Union Club, the Purdue Union Club Hotel and the 811 restaurant. Please keep them in mind next time you come to campus. You've seen this movie before, haven't you? In a second half, very reminiscent of the Rick Mount Day game years ago, a day that seems to still live on in infamy in Purdue basketball circles. Purdue led by 19 with under 10 minutes to go against the Hawkeyes, and this was a two-point game within the final 5 minutes. It sure looked like everything was pointing at Iowa there for a while. To Purdue's credit, the final 3 minutes of not 3 minutes, hang on. The final 2 minutes probably were all Purdue. Iowa finished 0 for 7 from the floor. Purdue got every defensive rebound. Travion Williams on the defensive glass was supreme. It's too early in the morning for me to come up with proper words. So I'm going to go with supreme, like a pizza. You have to give Purdue a lot of credit for being able to win this game with defense and rebounding. You have to give Purdue a lot of credit, for winning this game, period, on a day when an offense that was mowing over everyone through the first 7 games of the season just wasn't right today. Purdue, I'm not really sure why. I'll have to go back and watch the video tomorrow, why Purdue struggled to get the post established. But, Purdue's offense is an inside-out offense. And the first part of that is what? Say it with me now. Inside. And, Purdue always looks inside first. First possession of the game is almost always going to Zach Edey. If they can't get it to Zach Edey, then they figure something else out. But that's where it's going to start a game. Purdue never really got that established. Zach Edey only got 4 shots in this game. 6 points. Travion Williams, his shots kind of came from all over the place. He was only 4-12 for the game. So obviously not the level of productivity Purdue's used to here. Those guys being 6 of 16 between them for only 19 points. When your two centers only combine for 19 points and you're disappointed, that tells you have 2 really good centers. But be that as it may, Purdue never got the interior established, never got that component to play off of established, and struggled offensively. This was, probably Purdue's most difficult offensive game of the season. I didn't think, they played great offensively against Florida State. I think Florida State had more to do with that than Purdue had to do with it, and Purdue just found ways to score anyway. And I thought that the final point tally of that game was probably a little bit of a distortion of reality, because Purdue just kept finding ways to score even when their offense didn't necessarily work. Today, I thought in the second half, Purdue did a little bit of the same. I thought they made some really big plays at the ends of shot clocks. Purdue's becoming a pretty good end of shot clock team. I don't know what their metrics say. I don't know if their metrics are all that good, but it feels like they have made a lot of really impactful offensive plays at the end of shot clocks. And I think that's a credit just to the completeness of this team. They have playmakers. They have guys who can do things when there aren't things there to be done, so to speak. And they just keep finding a way, from an offensive perspective. I think this is a really beneficial situation for Purdue now. I think obviously having to scratch and claw to get this one, I think probably helps them long term. I think that their turnover struggles and the whole press thing, the whole backcourt trapping that Purdue struggled with so much, that is a team-wide issue. That is not just the point guard, even though the point guard is the one who ends up throwing the ball to the other team ultimately, or getting called for a 10-second violation. That player needs help, and again, I'll go back and watch the video tomorrow and see what's going on with the other 4 guys on the floor a lot of the time, but that's not just on one guy. And it really does stand to reason to suggest that what was I going to say? It does stand to reason to suggest that Isaiah Thompson was limited there due to the apparent hip issue he suffered when he hit the floor pretty hard in the first half. There were some situations where it looked like a healthy Isaiah Thompson would just be, kind of dribble past people, even though his quickness maybe doesn't show up on offense as much as it does, his shooting does. But it does stand to reason to suggest that perhaps he was banged up, and that's why he didn't play as much in the second half. Eric Hunter was probably a little bit worn out and not getting a whole lot of help either from the guys around him. So if you melted down on the internet tonight about Purdue not having a point guard, I think, there were some concerns there tonight, but I don't think they were solely on any, one player. I think, maybe the majority of the issue lied with that one player at times, but I also think operationally all across the floor, Purdue probably didn't execute the way it needed to execute. It's not like they didn't know Iowa was going to do that. So I think it was more of a poise issue, an awareness issue on a lot of people's parts, as opposed to just a simple, we had no idea they were going to do this, and we failed miserably dealing with it. But Purdue's got to get better at the whole turnover issue, though. That is the single biggest crack in the foundation here right now. Through 7 games, I know, there was some feeling out there that, there's a certain sense of invincibility, I thought, coming through based on what people were saying about Purdue and how awesome they were offensively and everything like that. And I said something last week about how Purdue, you looked and looked and looked, and you didn't see a lot of red flags with them. You didn't see a lot of reasons for concern. I was talking offensively. I don't think this team is a great defensive team right now. I think that kind of goes without saying. I think they'll get better as the season goes on, but I don't know if they'll ever be that great defensive team. I think they can be a good one by the end of the year, but they're not even close to that right now. And offensively, the turnovers simply have to get cleaned up. When you're a team as good as Purdue, you're competing against the opponent, but you're also competing against yourself to a certain extent. You're kind of chasing a higher level of execution, a higher level of productivity, so on and so forth. And just the general casualness, the general sloppiness sometimes with the ball just has to get cleaned up. I don't know if – I'm not a psychologist, nor has anyone said anything to me along these lines, but, when you're so productive as Purdue's been offensively, sometimes you just – it's probably human nature to get a little bit casual at times, or to just kind of have it in the back of your head that if kind of, I don't want to say an NBA mentality, but there's so many possessions in an NBA game that if you throw one away, you just can go ahead and make it up on the next one. I'm not saying that, Purdue's getting arrogant offensively or anything like that, but just the sloppy turnovers, the passing and catching stuff, the passes that don't get to anyone because the player throwing the ball and the player who should be catching the ball are not on the same page. That stuff's just got to go because Purdue's too good to be hurting itself that way from an offensive perspective. That's obviously been an emphasis all season long. It'll continue to be, and that's not going to change heading to Rutgers and to play NC State in Brooklyn now. But, some things that showed up for Purdue in this game I thought were, once again, the battle of attrition because Purdue stole a lot of offense in that first half by getting into the bonus, at ludicrous speed, so to speak. And that's something that can be an advantage for this team every time out when you've got the size you have. And part of it was Iowa being so aggressive defending the perimeter, too. They picked up a lot of cheap ones. That was a big deal for Purdue. Iowa had a couple guys foul out there at the end when they really needed guys who can make plays. They obviously finished 0 for 7 from the floor to close the game out. Did not have Chris Murray out there at the very end, even though I don't know if he really ever got going in this game playing in his brother's absence. And then the other thing was just this whole thing with Purdue where if it's not one guy, it's another who gets you. Tonight, Mason Gillis was the difference in this game. He was the difference in this game. And that's just where Purdue gets you. If it's not one guy, it's another. If it's not Jaden Ivey who beats you, it's Travion Williams and Zach Edey. If it's not Travion Williams and Zach Edey, it's Brandon Newman. If it's not Brandon Newman, it's Sasha Stefanovic. I probably should have put Stefanovic in front of Newman, but never mind. Ethan Morton's had really impactful stretches. Caleb First, huge against Villanova, huge all season long to this point. Again, if it's not one guy, it's another. And tonight it was Mason Gillis, who obviously has only been playing a couple of games now, but he obviously took his turn here. Just cannot say enough about what he did in this game. Again, he was the difference. I'll say that 20 more times if you didn't hear me. He took 3 shots tonight and turned that into 12 points. That's, if you're keeping score at home, that's 4 points per field goal attempt. He made both of the threes he shot, one of which was enormous at the end of a shot clock when Iowa was starting to mount a run, and Purdue needed something positive to happen. The one miss was a miss at the rim that he makes 9 out of 10 times. And so this easily could have been 3 for 3, 14 points. Instead, it's 2 for 3, 12 points. Enormous on the glass. His rebounding totals don't even reflect it because he finishes with only 3 rebounds, but I don't know how many rebounds he got fouled on. Again, I talked about the battle of attrition with the bonus, all of the free offense that you get, from the bonus. Those were points Purdue didn't have to earn, but Mason Gillis's effort generated that scoring on a night when Purdue's offense wasn't exactly rolling the way it has been rolling. So cannot say enough about Mason Gillis. Cannot say enough about this team's depth and the readiness of every single player on the roster, it seems like, to do something positive when their opportunity arises. You can probably run down the list now and go through guys who have maybe been the difference or one of the 2 or 3 differences in each of Purdue's wins at this point. It's probably the majority of the roster at this point. And then obviously Jaden Ivey being Jaden Ivey, that stretch he had that put Purdue up 19 was just textbook Jaden Ivey. He's got that knack for just going on these bursts that simply turn games on their sides, and that's exactly what he did there. He hit Gillis at the end of a shot clock on a ball screen for that 3-pointer, and then I think he scored like 6 points in a row, 2 of them off dunks. Just absolutely electrified this place, and it's just what he does, and that's what special players do. Is at times they just take the game in their hands and they just flip it around, and that's exactly what he did. So again, a special player who was not fazed by foul trouble tonight. Still played 29 and a half minutes, 19 points, 7 of 13 from the floor, efficient, all that stuff. Didn't make threes tonight, missed 3 free throws, but you can forgive him. Just a special player. And as I keep saying, and I'm not throwing it in people's face, but just enjoy him while you can, because you aren't going to see very many Jaden Iveys come down the pike here at Purdue or anywhere, because he is just a special player. And I've lost track of this video now. I've lost control of this video. It is now 1:55 in the morning. I could probably just sit here and talk all night and make no sense whatsoever, but I'm not going to do that. Again, this game probably scared the hell out of you. Probably almost triggered some 911 calls for some cardiac arrest. But Purdue got it done, and I think that this will benefit Purdue in the long term. I think they will get better for having almost let this one get away and then having to close it out at the end. I think they will learn some, proverbial hard lessons from this in terms of if they're not scared straight now about taking care of the basketball or improving on defense, they're never going to be, because you just had an opportunity to be number 1 in the country. Not that anybody was probably thinking about that during the game. More importantly, winning your first Big Ten game, and you almost let it slip away because you didn't take care of the basketball and you had a lot of defensive lapses. If this doesn't scare them straight, nothing ever will. which isn't to say what they have to get better at is easy to get better at, but it's something Purdue just needs to wholly commit itself to, if they haven't already. That they just have to cherish every possession, because they're too good offensively to be frittering away possessions, and they're not good enough defensively to be helping the other team score when they might not otherwise need the help. So there's probably some soul searching to be done here for Purdue after this, but you'd rather be searching your soul after a win as opposed to a loss, right? I think everyone will agree with that, and that's where Purdue is right now. This is a good problem to have, however harrowing this experience might have been. So I told you I was going to wrap up this video, and then I talked for another 5 minutes. That's basically the nature of these ridiculous videos. So I'm going to wrap it up. Thanks everybody for watching. Thank you for reading. Thank you for listening. And thank you for processing our materials, however you process our materials, at whatever hour of the day you might process them. And thanks once again to the Purdue Club Hotel and the 811 Restaurant for having the courage to associate their brand with this nonsense here that I'm filming at 2 o'clock in the morning in Mackey Arena. Thanks, everybody.